and gentlemen, and welcome to our opening ceremonies. My name is Neil Freeman from Bob FM Radio, one of the media partners here for this event today. We're ready to get things started with the 451st Army Band and our national anthem.
Yep.
Right, feet. Out to the left, push. Cross step.
The colors were presented today by the Polaris Battalion Sea Cadets. Thank you very much, and a big hand for the 451st Army Band. Okay. All right, up next we're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance, and the guy majorly responsible for this entire event is Mr. Russ Haynes, and he is going to announce who is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Russ?
I'd like to present my nephew Bo and my daughter Liliana.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty liberty and justice for all.
Nice job,
Nice job. All right, up next we have a speaker today. We actually have a couple, and we're going to also have a reading of the names. And again, on behalf of everybody involved with the event, thank you for coming out today. Our first speaker is Major Chris Hage. He's a United States Marine Corps Armor Officer. His first deployment was in 1997-98 aboard the USS Peleliu, an amphibious ship that patrolled the Pacific and the Middle East. His second deployment was to Iraq in 2005, where he was stationed in Camp Fallujah, Anbar Province. He held detachment commander, platoon commander, executive officer, company commander, and staff officer billets. He currently works for the federal government and lives with his family in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Ladies and gentlemen, Major Chris Hage.
Ladies, gentlemen, servicemen, and most of all, families of fallen heroes, I'd like to speak with you for a few moments about military service. Since 9/11, we have had over 10 years of continuous warfare, with the war in Afghanistan being the longest in U.S. history, and the war in Iraq the third longest. A generation of young men and women have joined the long line of patriots who served this country starting in 1775 with the Revolutionary War, and for over 2 centuries have defended our country through today and stand ready to do so again. Many of the veterans who fought in previous wars are still with us. Our World War II veterans defeated the great evil of the Axis powers. You, our grandfathers, set the benchmark for tenacity. Our Korean War vets fought a determined North Korean and Chinese enemy in inhospitable terrain. The word chosen is a term every Marine knows from the courageous action at the Chosin Reservoir. Our Korean War veterans, like my father, have often felt forgotten for their sacrifices in a war that got no parades or acclaim. You veterans who fought in the jungles of Vietnam against the communists, we should never forget that you won every battle in that war and returned to a less than grateful country. And our Gulf War veterans, you reminded the world what the American military was capable of with your 100-hour victory over the invasion forces of Saddam Hussein. We salute all of you. Raise your hands, veterans, and be recognized. I would like to recognize one of these living heroes. Mr. Conup, raise your hand. Bill Conup from Elk River was 18 when he was drafted in October of 1943. He thought he was going into the Army, but he ended up volunteering for the Navy Seabees, the Navy's construction unit. He ended up landing on the island of Iwo Jima, where the fighting was some of the fiercest in the war, and served as a runner, carrying messages from company commanders to platoon commanders on the beach, which the Japanese had zeroed in with machine gun and mortar fire. Bill was on Iwo Jima for 8 hours and then got shot in the face and back. He was evac to a hospital ship where he stayed for 7 days, during which we Marines raised the flag over Iwo Jima. Bill survived the war, but many of his friends did not. His battalion had a 37% rate of casualties. The sacrifices of Bill Conup's generation are legendary. His generation is rightly called the greatest generation. They came out of the Depression, defeated all comers in World War II, returned home, had families, and created the beginning of a long stretch of economic prosperity. They are due much honor. But I would like to respectfully suggest that we are now in the presence of men and women that are just as great as any of them were. Unlike in World War II, the generation that has fought in the wars of Afghanistan and Iraq were not draftees. They were volunteers. After 9/11, no serviceman entering boot camp or officer selection had any reason to believe that he would be going anywhere but the battlefield. The enemies we fought in Afghanistan and Iraq were cunning, capable, and fighting in land they knew well. They feared our strength and avoided it by using IEDs and by disguising themselves as civilians and by waiting for the time to run out on our patience. They had a saying, "You have the clocks, but we have the time." In the face of this enemy, young men and women enlisted and were sent over to the deserts of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan, and many of them did not come home whole or come home at all. These volunteers are a different breed. They joined the military knowing they were going to war. They joined a military which is now the counterculture in America. In broader America, especially in the age group when young people join the service, there is a selfie culture of entitlement and self-gratification. Self-expression is considered the highest good. Consent is the basis of relationships. Morality and truth is relative. Snark is considered humor. And every passing thought is posted on Facebook or Twitter. Many young people fully expect to be happy, healthy, rich, and famous. Entering the military, you enter the world of what is now the counterculture. In the military, you are only entitled to what you earn. Self-sacrifice, not self-expression, is valued. You will have relationships with all kinds of people, of all races and walks of life, from all over America, and a special relationship with your drill instructors that has nothing to do with consent. You become a member of a team, not an individualist. Ethical behavior is clearly defined and expected, and you learn about reality and the truth. The truth is that the military exists to break things and kill people. You learn the reality principle. You learn about what really works and that you sweat in training so you don't bleed in war. You learn that patriotic Americans have to put aside their individualism and give themselves over to something greater than themselves. You learn the reality that cohesion and discipline, not political correctness, is required to stay alive, to save your buddies, to destroy the enemy, and to defend our great nation. Since 9/11, most Americans' lives have been little impacted by the wars. Nonetheless, we Americans are big-hearted people, and there are a great many patriotic civilians, many of you folks here, who sent us care packages, letters, and your prayers when we were overseas. Thank you. Thank you. Many of our servicemen and their families experienced deployment after deployment, and their lives have been forever changed. Many of our veterans came back terribly wounded, or with the invisible wounds of PTSD. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. And while America may have gotten tired of the wars, our servicemen and their families never quit. And so, while our wars may have ended for a time, and many Americans want to move on and forget the whole business, there are some here for whom the loss of a fallen hero ensures that the wars will never be forgotten. Families of our fallen heroes, your sons and daughters, your husbands and wives, your fathers and mothers, were the very best that our great country has to offer. Nothing can ever replace them, and no thanks will ever be enough. We are all humbled and saddened by your loss. America is not a great nation because of our land, our wealth, or our power. America is a great nation because patriots have loved it, and some of them have paid the ultimate price. And while we celebrate our nation's warriors and mourn the loss of our fallen heroes, our enemies plan and plot. And sadly, some of our politicians and bureaucrats weaken us from within. In spite of this, it won't be long before America's finest are called upon again, and they will answer the call. May God grant that America always have such men and women of courage to defend our great nation. God bless America, and Semper Fidelis.
Thank you, Major Hage. That was exceptional. Up next, we're going to honor those with the reading of the names, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And Russ's right-hand man, Brian Flatham, is going to do the reading of the names. Brian?
This list is Minnesota's fallen heroes. Please forgive me if I misspeak the name. This is a very hard job. Daniel Adabo. Deidre Aguigui. Chad Allen. Samuel Amenrud. Joshua Anderson. Stuart Anderson. Levi Angel. Brett Angus. Eldon Arcand. Roland Barvels. John Bauer. Taylor Bowney. William B.J. Beardsley. Jeffrey Bicey. Jonathan Benson. Michael Benson. Peter Bergstrom. Randy Bergquist. Joshua Bible. Kimberly Blaisdell. Nathan Blomquist. Kyle Boline. Courtney Bombardo. Travis Bruce. Ryan Kane. Jeremy Campbell. Emilio Campo Jr. Michael Carlson. Russell Castro. George Cowley. David Cedergren. Robert Cheever. Ryan Clark. Alexander Cooling. Corey Combes. David Day. Roger Deeds. Nicholas Dickett. Robert Dissel II. Robert Dixon. Nathaniel Doring. Patrick Dorff. Daniel Drevnek. Gregory Edelston. Caleb Erickson. Shane Everett. John Foss. Jacob Fairbanks. Benjamin Farrell. Michael Fasnacht, Daniel Fetter, Curtis Feistner, Tyler Fay, Adam Flannery, Michael Frederickson, Patrick Freeberg, Michael Freiholtz, Chad Frockier, Rory Gavick, Brenda Geisey, George Glass II, Jason Goch, Christopher Goki, Corey Goodnature, Greg Gorder, Trevor Gould, Thomas Grameth, Robert Greninger, Robert Guilfoyle, Blake Haggart, Christian Hallman, Joshua Hansen, Matthew Harmon, Anthony Hebert, Brian Hellerman, Edward Hergott, Tad Hervis, Kelly Hines, Matthew Scott, Chester Hosford, Jeremy Hogdahl, Dylan Hurley, Brian Jacobson, Nikolai Jensen, Dane Johnson, Ian Johnson, Matthew Johnson, Paul Johnson Rubin, Thomas Johnson, Bill Juno, Matthew Kaler, Eric Can, Michael Caskey, Andrew Kemple, Joseph Kennedy, Stephen Keys, Nicholas King, Brent Cook, Benjamin Kopp, Lucas Koski, Mickey Kroon, Kurt Kruse, Felicia LeDuc, Bradley Lottie, Adam Lambertson, Moises Langhorst, Gregory Larson, Huiching Lee, Jesse Lotka, Troy Linden, John Lee Lindquist, Luke Lawrence, Matthew Laurie, Jeffrey Lumen, Christopher Lund, Joshua Lund, Jonathan Manea, Connor Masterston, Daniel McConnell, Ian McConnell, Sean McDonald, Brian McDonough, Anthony McElvey, Dwayne McFarland, Trevor McGurran, Dale Means, Ronald Meyer, David Mertz, Michael Mathiel, Jamie Mikowski, Matthew Milchuk, Benjamin Miller, Kyle Miller, Scott Modine, William Mulvihill, Noah Moanio, Andrew Nelson, Eric Neatfeld, Daniel Olson, Brian Opskar, Kyle Osborne, Sean Osterman, Daniel Otto, Dale Panshot, Riley and Ryan Pape, Lawrence Paulson, James Peace II, Robert A. Peterson, Lathan Peterson, Jacob Fingston, Randy Pickering, Tyler Pickett, Noah Pierce, Brighton Philstrom, John Pinsonault, Matthew Pyank, Zachary Pitsulka, Kenneth Pospisil. Robert Pospisil III and Daniel Posivio. Noah Ratty. Aaron Renstrom. Demetrius Rice. Alex Richardson. Greg Rewer. Gregory Rundell. Corey Rystad. David Sandmeyer. Joshua Schmidt. Jason Schumann. Michael Schuley. Jonathan Schultz. Troy Schultz. John Schuster. Todd Selge. Adam Shada. Lucas Siegfried. John Sills. Brian Skold. Kevin Sobiek. James Solatz. Nicholas Spihar. James Stee. Justin Strong. Brian Studer. Daniel Sweeney. Curtis Swenson. Aaron Talley. Aaron Taylor. William Taylor. Dennis Tellock. Jacob Thompson. Jason Timmerman. John Tobiasen. Eric Totten. Nicholas Turcotte. Henry Father Tim Vacott. Thomas Valentine. Adam Van Alsten. Jacob Vanderbosch. Randall Vos. Mark Weber. Michael Wendt. James Wordish. Carlos Wilcox. Andrew Wilfart. Brian Williams. Gregory Winkler. Philip Windorski. Nancy Winter. Kevin Witt. David Wool. James Wasicka. Kam Sham. Mickey Zahn. Seth Zencius. These are our fallen heroes.
Thank you for coming today. We celebrate our fallen heroes and the families. I'm going to ask Russ Haynes to come up. I'd like to just, for a minute, explain about Gold Star families. Russ?
I want to thank you for coming out and honoring our service members who are with us still and who have left us. A lot of people don't know exactly what a Gold Star family is. Among the crowd here, we have many Gold Star families with us. A Gold Star family is a family that has lost a loved one while serving our country. Many of those names on that list were lost